Hey there. Hey there. So recently I found myself reading a Doctor Strange comic book. I've been getting into Doctor Strange and I just love the mysticism. I love the intrigue. I love the suspense. I love the places that he goes and all the powers that he uses. His superpowers are like so fantastical, just so amazing to me. And, he's the sorcerer supreme, wielder of the mystic arts. And in this comic book, it had an episode where he was training his apprentice, Zelma, and they were going to this hidden tomb underground in this underground city that was buried deep, deep, deep down in the earth. And she asked him, because she was wondering, she said, are you sure it's abandoned? Are you sure? Are you sure this place is abandoned? Like, you sure we're not going to find anything down there? Are you sure? And what Doctor Strange said was so awesome. I just love this quote by Doctor Strange. He said, I've done far too many things. I've seen and done far too much. Actually, you know what? I want to get this quote right. I want to make sure. Here's the book. I want to make sure that I get this right because I want to give it the right way for you. Yes, he said, I've been around too long, seen and done far, far too much to be sure of anything. I thought this was so cool. Said, I've been around too long, seen and done far too much to be sure of anything. Now, to the average person, this would seem very backwards, right? Like, what do you mean? You've been around, you've seen and done all these things, and you're not sure? Like, wouldn't you be sure? Wouldn't you be certain if you've done all these things? If you've been to all these places, wouldn't that make you more certain? Well, I love the wording in this passage because that really poses the question. The more we know, the more knowledge that we attain, I feel what makes us wise is the realization, the understanding there is so much more to learn. There is so much that we don't know. They say the only thing that is for certain is that nothing is certain. The only thing that is permanent is that nothing is permanent. Is that everything is impermanent. That's the constant. We can say with all certainty that nothing is certain. It's such a, what do you call it? An oxymoron or a paradox. It's such a paradox, right? But the more knowledge that we gather, the more understanding that we come to the realization, the more questions that we ask, the wiser we become, we understand that we know nothing. The wise man knows that he knows nothing. The wise person realizes there's so much left to learn. And that's why I always tell people who ask questions, I always let people know, hey, you know what? I see you as a very wise person. And they ask why? Why do you see that? Why do you think that way? And I just like, that's why. It's because you ask questions. It takes a certain amount of humility to ask a question, to basically say that you're willing to put yourself in the background. You're willing to learn more. When you ask someone something, you disappear into the background. You do not exist for that moment. You're allowing that other person to give you information that you feel you are not equipped with, you don't have. So in asking someone else for anything, in asking for information, you're in effect, you're saying, I don't know everything. And you're allowing yourself to learn more. And that is wise. In the act of asking, that is wisdom, in my opinion. For when we don't ask questions, for when we assume that we know everything already, that we know all there is to know, when we assume this, when we make this assumption, we are telling the universe, I'm good. We have cut off that wellspring, that resource for more knowledge. We have essentially said that we know all we need to know. There's nothing more that we need to know. So why ask? Why ask questions? I already know everything I need to know. I'm good. But in that act of not asking, in that act of saying that, you know what? Why humble myself? Why ask? I know all there is to know. I know all I need to know. We're saying that we don't want to learn anymore. We don't need to learn anymore. And we don't. We won't. How can we? Right? So this was just so awesome to me to see this quote in this book. Someone as traveled as Doctor Strange, who's been not only all around the world, but has traveled interdimensionally, has been to other dimensions, other worlds, seen all things on different planes. Astral plane, has transcended all these things. He says, I've been around so many places. I've seen and done far too much to ever be sure of anything. He still keeps an open mind like a parachute. He has not closed his mind to the possibilities that anything is possible. That, in my book, that makes him wise. And that makes you wise as well. If you humble yourself to know for sure that nothing is sure. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this message, which I hope you did, I hope you were impacted by this. If you enjoyed this, feel free to visit the podcast, and that is at anchor.fm/JShaw. The podcast is called The Open Palm, and you can find it on Spotify, on Anchor, on Apple Podcast, iTunes, and different multiple platforms. This has been Jerome Shaw from jeromeshaw.net, the very same. And you can also visit that website if you'd like to see any other inspiration, any other forms. Feel free to share this with someone who could use this message. Pay it forward today. And have a blessed day or night wherever you are. Take care.